If tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd work for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Central Valley Talk. My name is Ray Johns. I'm your host, and the name of the show is Ray Johns American Patriot. My American Patriot today is a guy named Frank Gaffney. Now, he fought during the First World War, and I'm sure all of you remember the great movie with Sergeant York, with Gary Cooper played the part. This guy basically did the same thing. He overtook a machine gun nest, killed 5 or 6 Germans, held off 40 or 50 Germans until he got help, and was instrumental in the actual capture of over 120 Germans. And sadly enough, of course, he was documented, and he received several commendations, but he didn't get the notoriety that he probably should have gotten, but he was a great American hero. So Frank Gaffney is my American Patriot for this session. Also, I wanted to tell you that we're shooting for the third week in this month, hopefully the end of this month, the last Friday, for our show at the Elbow Room. So we're working on it right now, and hopefully we'll make an announcement this next week, and I'm sure we will. Now, Gary Miguel is back with us, and when he's here, we always have a great show. He's always got a whole bunch of things to talk about, and he's already informed me on some of them. Gary?
How you doing, Ray?
Glad to have you back,
well,
buddy.
It's good to be back.
What are we talking about today?
Well, you know what? We're going to talk about a local hero.
Oh, good. I love that.
We did that the other day when I talked about Joe Avila, remember?
Yeah.
And we all have local people something that we could talk about.
Sure.
And
well, who is this?
Well, we always talk about all the bad, all over the newspaper. You don't ever hear these stories.
No.
All you hear about is how somebody robbed somebody.
Yeah, all the negative stuff. Yeah.
So anyway, we're going to talk about someone local. I don't know the person personally, but he lives here in Fresno, and we'll just, I don't want to give any personal information about him other than the fact, let's just call him Dave.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Tell me about him. Now you got me curious.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this guy is a young kid, I guess maybe early 20s, so that's 22, 23 years old. Mm-hmm. And like I say, he lives here in Fresno and went to school here and all that. And what he is what's called a day trader.
Oh, wow.
And day trading has a very negative connotation whenever you mention this to anybody. Mm-hmm. Well, a day trader, what's day trading? Mm-hmm. And a good reason for it.
Why is that? I'm curious.
Because 98% of the people that try it fail.
Oh, okay. Well, that would be it, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good enough reason at all.
This guy obviously did not.
Well, he did not. And most people that do succeed, they really succeed. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But one of the big reasons for having a negative connotation is the fact, I mean, anytime you have that kind of a result, 98% fail, how would anybody say anything good about it? No. However, it's like anything else if you learn a skill. And the reason why so many people fail, one of the main reasons, is they don't look at it as a business. They look at it as if they're going into a casino.
Oh, wow. I can see that. I can see why that
well,
would be
everything's like that. I mean, everything's a gamble. Look at your business, the mobile home. If you went in there looking at it as a casino instead of a business, you wouldn't succeed.
Very true.
And if you look back on almost everything, people that go in there with the idea it's a casino, they're not going to make it because the odds are always against you.
Well, sure.
Right? But anyway, let's get back to Dave, who has succeeded at it,
Oh, I want to hear about this.
And what he makes a lot of money every day. He's a day trader. Mm-hmm. But what happened, he went to school here in Fresno. I forget the high school. It doesn't matter. And he had this long-term school friend and a friend all his life. Of course, he's only 20-something years old. Mm-hmm. Well, what happened, a very tragic thing happened to his friend. And what was tragic was that his friend's mom and dad were involved in a front-end collision car accident by a drunk driver going the wrong way on the road.
My goodness.
and killed them both.
Both his parents. Oh.
And so this kid lost his two parents, and he still has a sister in school. I think it's in high school.
Yeah.
So here he is, a young kid that age.
He's a kid himself, basically.
Yeah, well, he's a kid, and he goes and loses his two parents at a time when, let's face it, I mean, what a tragic thing that you can't even imagine the kind of tragedy that is.
Yeah.
So back to this Dave, he calls his friend, and he thought it'd be good for him, and he tells him, "Why don't you come over? I'm going to be trading tomorrow. Why don't you come in the morning about 6:30? That's when the market opens, and just spend a day with me." He said, "I think it'd be good for you." So the kid did. He thought so too. So he goes over there and spends the entire day with Dave. Well, that particular day, Dave's trading, day trading, and now the day's over. And that particular day, Dave made $65,000 in one day.
Oh, my goodness.
Think about that. So Dave makes $65,000, and this friend of his that's watched all this all day long, he couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
He just said, "That is unbelievable," which it is. And so anyway, Dave reaches in his desk, pulls out his checkbook, and writes a check for $65,000 and gives it to his friend.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
And
Hero.
And
Yeah.
somebody asked, "Well, how about the income?" I'll take care of that. He gave him $65,000.
Jeez.
Now, if that doesn't restore your faith in
Oh, absolutely.
mankind,
Absolutely, Gary. Great story.
isn't that a great story? And that's right here local.
Yeah. All right.
And so I thought, this is kind of a story that needs to be told.
Sure. I'm glad you told it. I love that.
For that guy to do that. And
Yeah.
the reason why he didn't tell the guy he was going to do it is because that would mess up his trading.
Sure it would.
Because he'd be thinking, the guy would be saying, "Oh man, you're ahead 10 grand." If he had told at the beginning that whatever I make today, I'm going to give you, it would have never.
Oh yeah, 10 grand. That's enough. That's enough.
That's enough. So Dave just waited to the end.
That is so awesome.
Reached in his desk, pulled out his checkbook, and wrote the guy a check for 65 grand.
I love it.
So that's the kind of
Absolutely.
story I thought I'd.
I love stories like that. Like you said, you won't hear that anywhere else.
No, you're not going to hear it anywhere.
So what's happening in the world today, buddy?
Well,
As if I don't know.
As if you don't know. Well, we're always at a critical point with Trump, and there's some things you have to understand a little bit, and it's food for thought. And last week, I thought it was important or something to think about, and I don't have the right answer to that, of course. But the point is, just ask yourself this question: would there have been a World War I, II, III, whatever, Vietnam, whatever, had Trump been president at the time? And you really, you got some things to say about that argument.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the bottom line is, in all wars, who takes the bullets and the arrows? It's always the people.
Well, sure it is.
But in Trump's wars, the leaders take the pain. Notice the difference.
Oh, it's a major difference.
Well,
Major difference.
I mean, it's all the difference in the world when it's the leader taking the pain. Okay, he's kind of run into a buzzsaw right now with Korea.
Oh yeah.
Okay, now let's explain that a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. Let's talk about that because I wanted to too. So
you?
go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, number one, well, you have to get the realization that Korea is really nothing more, North Korea,
Yeah.
is nothing more than an extension of China.
Yeah.
And Kim is pretty much all controlled by,
Well, sure he is.
well, he is controlled by
yeah,
China.
absolutely.
Right?
And we've always known
Right.
that. Yeah.
And China has used that with past presidents going back to, Clinton, Bill Clinton. And they've used that to their advantage. They've used North Korea to their advantage in terms of their trade and
yeah.
so forth, right? Okay, well, Kim, all of a sudden, he gets a buddy that's not China. And his buddy is Donald Trump. I like to use the example that Donald told me he'd get a McDonald's burger in his town. So,
I love it.
so anyway, what is happening is Trump is really putting the binders on China big time with the trade deal. I mean, it's hurting big.
And it's
really-
about time after all
Well,
these
of course,
years, you know.
because it was draining our country
Sure.
of jobs and
Yeah.
wealth and so forth. Well, he's putting a stop to it. Well, obviously, China's not going to like that.
Well, of course they don't.
So you're going to wonder, sit there, well, who's going to win? China? No, you already know who's going to win.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
That's
So-
not even a question that should even be asked.
Well,
Yeah.
because it's tariff.
Yeah.
And the country that is putting more goods than it brings in, well, then you have to pay more tariff.
Yeah.
Well, China puts it like it's 5 times or something like that, the amount of goods into the U.S. than the other way around. So China puts a tariff on the U.S., but look at the tariff on China. And they can't win that war.
Yeah.
Because no matter what, they're always going to be paying more tariff.
Yeah.
And of course, our country has gone up in value because of that.
Absolutely, we have.
Well, you know, I just seen the other day, we've gone up 10 trillion in net worth. As far
Are
as
you
the coun-
kidding?
10
That much?
trillion, yes.
That's a lot.
Well, the debt's 20 trillion.
Yeah.
And we're now worth 10 trillion more than we were before Trump.
So we've made up about half of that
Well,
that
that-
Obama screwed
Well,
up.
that's value,
Yeah.
you know. So if we sold the U.S. to Russia, then we can pay our debt, right?
Yeah.
But the whole
That's
thing,
amazing, Gary.
Well,
I
it
didn't
is
know it was that
amazing,
much.
and it's going to lead to this next part of it. But think about what's going on there, and North Korea is your people are starting to see it now. 100% controlled by China,
Absolutely.
but there's a lot of people in Kim's country. I mean, in government that are like our government
Yeah.
that are aligned with China. And so that's why Kim's having trouble right now of moving along with this as fast as what we wanted it to. It's because China is putting
Sure.
the heat on these North Koreans, not just Kim, you
Yeah.
know. Because Kim all of a sudden figured out, you know what? Man, I'm better off with Donald Trump than I am this Chinese leader.
Well, sure.
I mean, Donald said I could have this and I could do this and we could do that. He showed us a video of what our country looks like Acapulco, you know, or something. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's got that vision.
Yeah.
And man, if he sides with Trump, all that stuff happens. Plus, look what happens to the North Korean people. They become just as wealthy as the South
Well,
Koreans.
certainly.
But they're-
And that country's got people
Right.
starving to death for
Right.
crying out loud.
Well, that's
you
what
know?
that, just a total opposite.
Yeah.
And however, Kim has a problem with his own people in government, just like Trump does with the
Sure.
deep state.
Yeah.
And so China is putting pressure on those people, which puts pressure on Kim.
Kim, yeah.
He can only do so much.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is we'll win that eventually. And we'll win it through tariff,
Well, sure we
trade,
will.
and so
Yeah.
forth. China's going to, in fact, here's interesting. Our stock market has gone up 30% since Trump. China has gone down 15%.
Oh my goodness.
That's a big-
See, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
So,
and a lot of people don't know it. Of course, they're not going to tell you on fake news.
well, of course they're not.
Okay, so anyway, that kind of leads into the next thing is that I wanted to talk about is let's go back the beginning of Obama.
Okay.
That's what 8, but start of his 8 years. In other words, he's
Which was
running
that,
for
was
president.
2008, something like that?
Yeah, whenever he's run for president. Okay. All right. There's 2 things that I heard the most of why people voted for Obama. And one of them was that they felt that Obama would unite the country, that he was a unite,
Yeah.
all right? That's what we were sold by the press, that
Sure.
there's that he elect Obama and he would unite us again.
Yeah.
But if you looked at the evidence at the time, which you wanted to believe it, so you ignore it,
Yeah.
Obama was everything but an uniter. He
Well, he was
a
a puppet
divider.
for one thing. I
Well,
mean,
he was also
didn't-
a community organizer. What's that? That just organizing Black Panthers and Black Lives Matter and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if you look at his background prior to, well, he was with that church. Remember that guy, GD America?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
yeah. Yeah.
Obama was, all the evidence were there, but because of the fake media and the propaganda, people ignored that.
Yeah.
And that was one reason why they voted for Obama was the idea that maybe he will unite us
the country,
all,
yeah.
right?
I remember that.
And some other reason, but another big reason was the fact that he was our first black president, and it's time we have a black president. You heard that? It's time we have a woman president.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've heard that.
Okay, so that's the two reasons. Now think about this. What's the most important reason to elect a president? It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with competence,
Exactly.
right? So what did the public do? They did not vote based on competence. They voted based on emotion.
Sure,
Okay?
exactly.
And the emotions are, I believe he's going to be a uniter, and I believe it's time for a black president. It had nothing to do with competence. So now
How sad is that?
How sad is that? Okay, so think about this a little bit, Ray, because this is more and more coming up. As far as we talk about liberals. Let's say that liberals. What do they look at when they see a conservative? They see meanness and evil.
Oh, yeah.
What does a conservative see when he sees a liberal? He sees stupid. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? Okay, so let's go back to that. So we have 8 years of Obama, and the evidence comes out that neither one was very good. And so my point is now we come into Trump, and you got a decision to make, like you had the decision back with Obama. Okay, only this time it's Trump and Hillary.
Yeah.
Well, Hillary's the same thing as Obama, so
Sure.
so, but look at the vote. The votes were not because of, I'm talking about from those who voted for Hillary, had nothing to do with common sense. Had nothing to do with law. Had everything to do with
Look at the
emotion.
aftermath. That proves that.
That's right. Okay, so let's go back and think about this. If you voted for Obama because he was supposed to be a uniter, that means that if to vote for him when the evidence was just the opposite of that, and the evidence was already there, but it wasn't. It was the propaganda wasn't.
Yeah.
Was there. Okay. Now think about this. Then that means you voted stupidly. That was a stupid vote.
Well, sure. I agree.
I
with
mean,
that.
if the evidence is just the opposite of why you're saying
Yeah,
it is,
why- yeah.
then you're pretty stupid to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I tell you not to put your hand on that fire, but you do it anyway.
Yeah.
Pretty stupid. The other reason is because of his color of his skin. Now, isn't that racist?
Well, of course it is.
So there was only two reasons that he was voted, was because you were stupid, or you were racist, or you were both.
Yeah.
What
And
else
in,
would
and
there
in
be?
most cases, it was both. I
Of
would
course,
think,
it was
yeah.
both. Okay, and that goes for white and black, doesn't
Well,
matter.
sure.
Right, okay, so then we go the clock forward, and I can understand this. Now, Trump's being elected. He's not a politician, but he's competent. Okay?
Very.
And, of course, he got elected, you know. But the point is, look at all those that didn't not vote for Trump, even though the evidence were there to say that I should vote for Trump because of competence, but they voted for Hillary because of emotion.
Sure.
And it's back to the same thing again, stupidity
Yeah.
or races, because they played the race card,
Well,
as you
sure.
know. So the only reason they voted for Hillary was because either they were stupid or racist or both. And Democrats are proven to be the most racist there is. I don't care what color either, okay?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. All right, now let's
They're
go.
real good at fooling people, aren't they?
Well, of
Yeah.
course, and especially with the help of a media
The
that's
media,
yeah, that's 95%
Absolutely.
going to enforce that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we go to today. Trump's been in office now 18 months approximately, not even 2 years.
Yeah.
Now we have evidence all over the place of what the country is benefiting, all including every man, woman, and child are safer today.
Yeah.
Our military, go on and on. You name
Yeah.
it. We'd sit here
Yeah.
for, you know.
And we could use we could take the whole show and
We could take the whole show and just
accomplishments.
listen to the
Absolutely.
accomplishments. Okay, the point is it's evident.
Yeah.
What's not evident, of course, is the media if you watch CNN
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the reasons going back to Obama. The first time you voted Obama was because of you thinking that he could unite the country and it's time for a black person. So you voted on stupidity and racism.
That was 2008, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next election
2012.
with Hillary. You still vote on stupidity and racism. What else would there be? Because you say, well, I don't have the evidence with Trump, even though he's a billionaire self-made, but that wasn't enough. But now you get the real evidence, and now you're sitting here today. How in the world, if you are any kind of a sane person, thinking person, common sense person, how could you possibly not vote for or support Donald Trump?
You know, it amazes, you and I have talked about this before, it amazes me that they cannot see it, or they just don't want to see it.
Well, or they don't want to see it because it's emotional.
Yeah.
And they don't vote on logic or anything. It's all emotional. So when you think about that, and you say, well, I don't see how they can't see that.
Yeah.
I tell you, I had a friend of mine that I told this, or we talked about it for some time, and he called me today because he knew I was going to do the show, and I told him what to talk about. And he says, I'm beginning to think you're right when you say that liberals have a missing gene.
What?
And they're breaking this down to that TDS, Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
And so, if you can't speak logically to someone, it's because they are totally blind with emotion.
Sure.
You know,
I totally believe that.
and emotion is very few decisions are made without emotion.
Yeah.
I could illustrate that, Ray. We go into a car room, and boy, you're looking at that car, and they got that new car smell. What do you buy that car? You don't buy that car because it's got 8 bearings in the wheel. You buy that car because it smells good. There's a book that a guy wrote one time called "You Sell the Sizzle of the Steak, Not the Steak." And people that are incapable of moving themselves from being that emotional. I don't care what educational level they are, but they can't.
That doesn't matter.
They can't do it, and because if they can't go from stupidity and into logical common sense, you gotta ask them. They gotta ask themselves, what's wrong with me? I don't see how in the world you could do otherwise, other than you're just stupid,
You're right.
or you're racist.
Yeah.
And I think it has probably more to do with stupidity than any of them. I really do.
Because the evidence is all there.
Yeah. Because
So
the
how could
evidence
you
is
not?
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. If the evidence wasn't there, that's another
Yeah.
story, But it has nothing to do with anything as I see it, as plainly as I could see it.
Yeah.
There's only one reason today not to support Trump, and there is no other reason other than the fact it's stupidity and it's racism. And so then when you think about that, and there's a lot to be said about you can't fix stupid,
Yeah.
and people are slow to react. But here's what's interesting: the walkaways.
Yes.
That is really interesting because, Ray, I try to do that once a day. I look at one of those walkaway videos, and it's people that you would never dream. I mean, there's gangbangers walking away.
Are you kidding me?
And I mean, but it's all walks of life, from old to young. And the biggest ones that are walking away, though, as far as volume,
What?
it's the millennials.
Oh.
Now,
We talked about that
Yeah.
earlier, a couple of weeks
And
ago.
I'm not saying the millennials are going to Trump necessarily. It's just that they're walking away from the Democrats.
Yeah.
And boy, when they come on there, they're pretty.
Do you predict because I know he's going to get reelected, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I predicted 3 months before he got elected, you did actually, that he was going to win. And he's certainly going to win again. I think he's going to win by a major margin.
Of course, and because there's not less people, there's more people.
Absolutely.
They're becoming tired of being stupid.
And they're waking up.
They're waking up. I watch these videos, like I said, and I watched one the other day. And at first, when you looked at him, you kind of like, wow, this guy, he looked like a gangster, gangbanger, young kid. And he was a black kid. And he was, at one time, he says, I was in the middle of that protesting stuff. He says, I was out there in the street hollering. I was there banging on cars. I was just breaking windows. He says, I was all of that. He says, then one day I woke up and I said, wait a minute, there's something wrong. Mm-hmm. You know, he just came to Jesus, I guess.
Yeah.
And he
Whatever
said,
it takes.
and what, but you know, it reminded me of you when you always use that term, diligence. Do
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
He says, so at first when you seen him, you're kind of, but then you start seeing how articulate. He was pretty articulate, you know. He said, no, I was as bad as they get. Black Lives Matter and all that, you know. He says, and then I started doing some research, and he started picking up on what was going on in the past as well as today with the Democrat Party. And he said, I didn't walk away. He looked you right in the camera. He says, I didn't walk away. I ran away.
I love it.
And he says, and I advise anyone watching that if you're a Democrat, I advise you to run away.
Now, that tells me something, because if a young man like him can do that, just imagine the others.
Well, especially it's just amazing, because you have to appreciate where his mind was just a short time ago.
Sure,
he was in the
exactly.
street.
Yeah,
he was
out there demonstrating, breaking windows.
Hollering,
and
he was one of the.
Yeah.
I mean, and for him to go to that kind of a switch, it's pretty impressive.
Well, that tells you what's happening.
And I think you're seeing that, and that gets back down to what you're talking about. But I look at though I do talk to people, not a lot, but several this week. And man, I'll tell you what, Ray, when you start to talk to some people that are locked into that, this person was an older person, locked into that Democratic mentality.
Oh, I've done it.
And you've done it because you get more experience with it than I do. And then how can you come out of there and think of that person and not think, my God, that's strictly stupidity?
Well, it's just,
for
me, because I can't understand it. I just, it blows me away that they can't see.
Well, I got to give you credit, because you were, I don't know, you somehow were young enough way back when to do that, because you weren't supposed to do that, and you were just telling me about how people still give you trouble with that Trump T-shirt.
Yeah.
Because, see, the stereotype they have, to me, when somebody does that, they are exhibiting just how prejudiced they are, just how racist they are.
Somebody talked, we were talking about that at the gym today. And in fact, I had a really kind of a pretty neat experience, and I'll tell you about that later, because it goes along with the thing of us talking to the policeman. And I got a great story to tell you. You'll love that. But and this included this policeman, and we were talking, and he said, I was in here the other day when that lady went crazy. I mean, just, but if I get 20 comments on my shirt, 19 of them are complimentary.
That's what you were saying.
Yeah, and so it's, and it could be where I go, because I only go, it's my area of where I go, and what I do is pretty conservative, and the people that I know and deal with and work with are conservative people,
Right.
So.
But I mean, I have to admire you for doing that.
Thank you.
Because
Thank you.
It takes a lot of courage on your part, because the first impressions of what people are going to get, if they're on the wrong side of the fence.
Yeah.
They're well, what's he doing? What's he doing wearing that shirt?
And I tell people all the time, I have no qualms. I say, how dare you dictate to me what my First Amendment rights are?
Yeah.
You don't have that, and I will not allow that.
Right.
I won't tolerate that.
Yeah, I think you're doing a lot of good myself.
Thank
obviously.
you. I think you are too. Boy, you bring a ton of information to this radio station, and we appreciate it. I look forward to it. The things that you send me are amazing. I wish, and I do. I want to do a whole. I saved everything. I want to do a whole show just on the stuff that you send me. I really do. I want to get together with you and have you. In fact, let's do that next week.
Okay.
Let's do. I just thought.
Bring some of those in, and we'll.
I'll bring my iPad in. They're all on there. Every one of them. I don't throw them away.
We'll just go through it.
And before the show, you and I'll go through and we'll pick out the best ones. And because you're on top of things, of course we'll do the new ones. But you've said some things in the past that are very relevant today, very relevant. And I'd like to touch on some of those.
Well, it's food for thought. I don't have the answers, and I don't expect people to accept everything I say, of course. But I just want food for thought. And one of the biggies, because there's more that goes with that, would there have been a world war had Trump been president at that time?
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge difference, dynamic. Because there's been no president in history that, well, there may have been. I'm not that historical, but
I don't think there has.
that have used economic weapon in the way Trump uses it.
Yeah.
You notice what he did first, though? That's so important. When he didn't go there with the economic bullet first, he went with building the military
Sure.
up to where it's the strongest in the world. And
By far.
so now he's got not only the military might or the physical might, now he goes in with how he's going to get to that leader.
Yeah.
And save the people walking on the street. I had a guy question me a little bit about that, and I said, he said, oh, no, World War II, Hitler, this and that. And I said, well, wait a minute. I says, Kim, which was really China, was putting up ballistic missiles that could carry warheads right here to L.A., San Francisco, and Fresno.
Yeah.
I says, how threatening is that? I mean, Hitler couldn't even do that much. But he could, and look what's happening.
Sure.
I'm not saying down the road, we don't know. But what we do know is there's been no missiles fired.
Absolutely. And I don't think there will be.
Well, I don't either, but then it'd be pretty hard.
Yeah.
And especially with the kind of might that we have, I mean, the first missile that would go and land somewhere here, man, we'd have that whole country would be obliterated.
Oh, yeah.
And we got the power to do that.
I loved it what Mad Dog Mattis said that time.
Yeah.
Remember months ago, and they asked him about what would happen with Korea. He said it'd be about a 15-second war.
Right.
And that's basically what it'd be. We'd just wipe them out. That'd be it.
Well,
It'd be
and
over.
then you take World War II as an example. I mean, like Hitler. I mean, Trump could put the same type of thing back then, looking at it today. Let's say he put the same thing back then. He'd drive up Germany up,
Sure.
from an
That's a
economic
good. That's food for thought. That
well,
is
I
an
mean,
excellent-
and people will argue that, and that's fine because,
Yeah.
but it is food for thought,
Sure
and
it
you
is.
have to wonder, well, would there be a Vietnam War?
Yeah.
But more recently, which affects me because
Yeah.
I was during that time.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was a phony thing to begin with.
Oh, absolutely.
And that would have been an easy one for Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Man, he would have solved that one.
Yeah.
Because that Ho Chi Minh was well, he was educated elsewhere, and so was Kim.
Yeah.
But what Trump does is make it to where the leader benefits.
Yeah.
And see, each one of those leaders, I've gone clear back to even Japan, they tried to work with the U.S.
Sure.
but they were rejected. Well, and because then the U.S. was like a bully or something.
Yeah.
Well, Trump doesn't do that.
No.
He says he offers that guy something better. I kid around with that McDonald's deal for Kim, but that's the idea. So he goes back to Ho Chi Minh. You know that Ho Chi Minh at one time wanted to be friends with the U.S.
See, I didn't know that.
I'll tell you another one that wanted to be friends with the U.S. Castro.
Oh, now that I believe. That I believe because it was
Originally wanted to be.
Well, yeah.
Right.
And he realized it would have been beneficial to him.
Well, it was
you know.
because of our leadership failures that caused us so much problem. Trump does an entirely different thing. He's the only president since George Washington, I guess, that wasn't a politician.
Yeah.
But Trump would have solved that Castro
Yeah.
deal. Look what he's trying to do with Mexico. And people say, well, he's not going to get anything done with because that's a
Yeah.
communist leader. Well, then look what Trump's doing with
Yeah,
communist
exactly.
leaders. I mean,
China?
China, Russia,
Yeah.
Korea,
Yeah.
North Korea. I said, look what he's doing with those people. And I said, that Mexican deal, which it's surprising me what I'm seeing so far because there's a lot yet to go. But that Mexican deal is going to be very interesting, and I think it's going to be great for the Mexican people
And us. Yeah.
and us.
Yeah.
And like Trump even said it, he said there's no agreement unless there's good for us. And good for them. But we can't have it one way.
Yeah.
That's it.
You know, and I've said it before. We're going to take a little break here in a second, but I've said it before. You know, they ought to give the man the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm serious. I really think, and people get crazy when you say that. I think they should.
Well,
I really
of course,
do.
I mean, if there's ever anybody that's ever deserved it,
I thank you for saying that.
he
'cause I
does.
agree. Yeah.
In fact, if they've only given one, that's the only one that should get it.
Absolutely.
Look at Obama. I think he got it, didn't he? What in the
Well,
world?
I don't know. I think he did. I thought. I think he did. I think it just.
Well, the only thing with Trump is that all of a sudden that Nobel Peace Prize got cheap if Obama got
Yeah,
it. It's like-
I can't. Well, yeah, I know he was nominated. He may have won it. I don't know. I just, I never paid attention to too much of what he did.
But Ray,
Yeah,
it's like you're on the ball team, and you're the outstanding player, and you get a trophy. But then everybody else
gets a trophy
because
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Now, what does that make your trophy?
Well, negates it a little bit, doesn't
Yeah.
it? We're going to take a little break here, and ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about the upcoming show, and we're going to have Gary back, and we're just about halfway through here, and when Gary comes, time flies, as it always does. So we'll take a little break. We'll be back here in a couple of minutes.
Forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
It's said now that our economy is the strongest it's ever been in the history of our country. And you just have to take a look at the numbers. Unemployment, all-time historic lows. Black unemployment, Hispanic unemployment, Asian unemployment, women unemployment. These are records that are being set on a weekly basis. Our country is doing phenomenally well. We're going all the way. You look at what's happening outside of the United States, it's not a pretty picture. Inside of our country, we are just setting records, and I'm going to keep it that way. We have a lot of potential. We have a long way to go. Great trade deals are being negotiated right now. We're doing some great trade deals. When that happens, your 4.1 is going to go even higher. We're having a lot of fun.
I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her.
I'm going to say something here right now. The director of this show, Mike, is just wonderful. He just handed me a note here. This guy's great. I love Mike. He's the one that makes this show happen. And it's Robert, Hunter, and Monica. I want to thank you for your comments on the show. We really, really, really appreciate it. We do.
Yep.
Thank you so much. And I was telling Gary, I ran into a friend of his at Barnes & Noble a couple of weeks ago. And this guy just raved about the show, and I know he's probably watching because of the way he talked about the show, and he's a friend of yours. And so whoever you are, and I apologize because I've forgotten your name. I wish I'd gotten a card or something from you, but thank you, sir, very much for your comments. And I get so many great comments from the guys at work and I mean the guys at the gym. And it's just, GB3 is just a wonderful place. God, I can't say enough about that place. The lady that runs that's wonderful. It's just great. And they're going to give away some stuff from GB3 on our show. So that's coming up at the Elbow Room. So it's going to be great. What are we talking about, young man?
Well, Ray, we hit on some things to think about, of course.
Absolutely, we always do.
And it could be controversial, and that's the purpose, is so people start to think about it, And one of the issues right now, and has been going on ever since day one, is the public is now aware of the fact that there is, or has been for a long time, a purpose of trying to develop a purpose to overthrow the election.
Oh, yeah.
And they thought they were going to win. They didn't think they would have to even be where they are right now, or they wouldn't have done some of the things they've done, because some are going to go to jail.
We put them in a state of shock, didn't we?
Well, and of course, there was a lot of criminality that went on with it. And but that was a shock, and I'll never forget when Hillary asked Trump in one of the debates, she said, "Will you accept the results of the election?" And she did not accept the results of the election.
No, she did not. And I remember that when she asked him that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And so ever since then, to this day,
she was so confident that she was going to win for the
right.
first thing.
Well,
that's why that was the purpose of the question.
Well, those people are let's get back to common sense again. I've been studying what that's been going on for now over a year with that, or actually with that Mueller deal. It amazes me the lack of common sense that some of these people have, that end up putting themselves in a jeopardy. They if they had any brains, They wouldn't. But
makes
see,
no-
it's not that they're not smart. It's not that they're not educated.
It's common sense
It
is
gets
what it
down
comes
to
down to.
common
Sure it
sense,
does.
and a liberal does not have that, or they wouldn't be a liberal.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no common sense if you're an American to be a liberal.
No.
I mean, why would you want to be a libtard if you, as an American living in America, with all the advantage that we have as Americans, which has nothing to do with what the liberals are trying to do with a communist, socialist style government?
No.
That is the opposite of
Exactly.
what we are.
Exactly.
So
Totally.
if you're looking at two opposites and you're applying some common sense to it, saying, man, I don't see how anybody would want to live like they do in Venezuela,
No.
or why would you want to live like they do in North Korea,
Yeah.
or Russia,
Yeah.
or anywhere where the communism prevails?
Yeah.
You wouldn't. But then why is it that these people are like that? There's something wrong, right?
Maybe it's that missing gene that you're talking
Well,
about.
I think
because
that,
maybe that's what it
let's
is.
put
Who
it this
knows?
way: isn't that as good as any?
Absolutely.
You know,
we can't. We haven't been able to figure it out. Just might as well say that's what it is.
Well, I mean, you're born that way. It's just
Yeah.
like, heck, you got red hair instead of brown hair. You can't help it. You're just born stupid.
One good thing coming out of all that, though, and Gary and I talked about it before, is that a lot of these people are starting to wake up. I mean, how can you live in this world and not see what's going on with the economy, with the stock market,
Right.
with everything? If you're a small
Jobs,
business owner, as I am,
Yeah.
it's amazing. I mean, it's right there in front of our face. What's
And
going
jobs that are
on?
created.
Absolutely.
Okay, now if we look at that then and go back to this deal with Trump and Sessions, and I've kind of gone back and forth on that Trump and Sessions deal. You have to ask yourself, what in the world is Sessions doing there, based on what we're hearing from the media as to what Sessions all about. Now, you got to ask yourself, well, why did Trump hire him to begin with if he's going to recuse himself? Well, supposedly he didn't know he was going to do that.
No, he didn't. How would he have known?
Okay,
Yeah.
let's just ask the next. Well, being as he did, why don't we fire him right now? Why do you keep Sessions all this time? Ray, why do you keep Sessions all this time? Look at the people that Trump has fired already.
Sure.
His administration that he had in there at the beginning, they're gone.
All of them. Yeah.
And he's replacing. He's replaced everybody. But why doesn't he replace this guy Sessions if he's so bad? And you know, that is a good question.
It is. I'm trying to figure out. But he knows what he's doing.
Well,
I
let's put
guarantee
it this way:
And-
Trump can fire Sessions at any time,
Sure.
as well as some of these others.
Sure.
I mean, he's in charge. It's like you're sitting there complaining about that guy that you hired at that mobile home, how he doesn't know a right wrench from a left wrench. Ray, then why do you keep that guy?
Yeah. Good point.
Okay, I think there's a reason why Trump keeps them. That's one of the theories. Is that had it not been for the Mueller investigation, we would not have known about all of these crooked, corrupt people.
Absolutely.
And we would, if that would have been settled way back, and then the attention would have been, well, that wasn't a fair trial. It had nothing to do with the fact we as a people have been forced to learn just how corrupt our departments are, and especially the DOJ, the Department of Justice, the CIA,
The FBI.
and the FBI.
Yeah.
Now, these are our law enforcement to protect us
Yeah.
and keep us with an equal for everybody law. It's everything but that.
Yeah.
We would have never known the difference. Plus, they have weaponized that. Beyond that being crooked, they used it as a weapon, including the IRS. So if there's a difference between maybe being corrupt and crooked with it, but then when you start to weaponize it and you use it to defeat your enemy,
Yeah.
just as you would a bullet,
Yeah.
well, this is now coming out to where the average American is able to see that,
Sure.
despite CNN.
That's it. Yeah.
Despite
Despite
the-
CNN, because you're not
Despite
going
the
to see it
fake
there and
news,
guarantee
right?
it. Yeah.
Okay, so then Trump knows he's innocent. I mean, he has to go through all that, and his family through all this hell. But in the meantime, how else would we know about it unless it was like this? And it goes on and on. And so then Sessions keeps holding off, right? Well, is Sessions really, and Trump, are they in some kind of an agreement that we just have to go through this, and then down the road it's going to finally come up, because it has to.
Yeah.
One way or
Eventually,
another.
yeah. Sure it does.
Where it comes up to where we have to get back to an equal law. We have to clean our departments all the way to veterans,
Yeah.
you name it. It's all corrupt, and it's got to get clean. Well, right now, Trump says, okay, we're going to make you the bad guy. I'm going to be the good guy. And I'm going to complain about you, everything in the world, because that is how we are going to finally get the public to see. And they're going to take sides. They're going to either take your side or my side.
Yeah.
And that's all right.
Sure.
And so then what we do is we end up exposing things that we would have never known about.
Like you said, we would never have known.
Never known it. And the longer it takes, oh man, I'm getting impatient. It's got a bad. Hey, when's he going to drop the bomb? When's he going to do? But remember, we talked about it way
Sure we
back
did.
about
Sure
Trump
we
sitting
did.
on a ship, just putting out rope, putting out rope, and he's still putting out rope.
That's exactly what he's
Okay,
doing.
now we're going into the midterm elections in November. Well, guess what? A lot of the people, I'm going to talk about Republicans and Democrats, they're guilty. Now, let's say that Trump puts the hammer down. Man, he's liable to wake up and look in that Congress, and he's got very few Republicans.
There's always that possibility.
Well, there's already been 35 quit. Spend more time with the family.
Or so they say.
Well, of course, you always hear that. Well, I got to spend more time.
Yeah.
This guy's 40 years old. He's got to go spend more time with the family.
Yeah.
Or this guy's 80 years old. He's got to spend more time. That's all baloney, of course. But the point is, there's a lot of those guys getting out now before the hammer comes.
Before the hammer comes down, because they
Right.
know it's coming.
And
they
then,
know that.
And,
Of course
and
they
if
do.
Trump was to go in there right now, and they started indicting all these people, he's liable to sit there and not have any Republicans in Congress or Senate.
They're in live sessions. Why is
They're
he
in
still there?
live
See?
sessions.
See?
So then Trump needs those people up into that midterm. right?
Beautiful, Gary. You're right. Absolutely.
And so then afterwards,
We're going to
that's a
see
different
something.
ballgame.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so we're people are looking for justice for and all that. We all are, but you're not going to get any justice unless Trump has control of Congress and Senate in terms of the right people
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
And the judges. There's another thing that Trump has done by waiting.
Oh man, look at where he's at.
Okay,
With
now
that.
think about this, Ray. Had he come out right at the beginning, 2 years ago, let's call it. Well, who were the judges in all these seats, all over in these districts and so forth? They're all Obama judges.
Every one of them. All
So
of them.
what Trump has been doing is replacing those judges with conservative judges, so that when these people do get or have to go before the judge, they're not going before a judge that's going to throw them out. He's going before a judge that's going to put them in jail
Exactly where they belong.
and where they belong. And now you can see why if he went too soon and these people,
Oh yeah.
because they let him out like crazy,
Well,
right?
of course they do.
I mean, you let
Yeah.
these criminals, what is it, these illegal immigrants? My God, I mean, you can commit murder and be walking the street tomorrow morning, which has already been proven by
Unreal, yeah.
by a judge who is, I don't know, idiot,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, only thing I can say. But anyway, he lets them off, right? Well, Trump has to stop that. And the only way he can stop it is by replacing those judges. There's never been, in the history of the United States, a president replace more judges
Oh, I know.
than Trump.
And he hadn't been in 2 years yet.
So but he has to get those judges in place, or all this doesn't. He could do all the indicting in the world. It doesn't mean anything
Yeah.
if he doesn't have the right
Yeah.
judges. And that's what he's doing. He's delaying it, and the more he delays,
It's just
I just
smart.
seen
So
last week where he replaced 4 judges, and so so the more judges that he has, especially in the district that they know these people
Sure.
would be appearing, well, then they're not going to be going before that judge is going to slap their wrist and
butts
send them
going to
home.
prison.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so I look at, I'm just offering that as a possibility that Trump and Sessions are playing what they call 64D chess.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't know if Sessions is a white hat or
Yeah.
not. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just saying I can see
There's that possibility. Yeah.
And I can see that. I am convinced totally that by the longer the delay that best it has been, and then more people become aware that wouldn't have been aware otherwise.
That's true. Very true.
You know, I mean, you could be a whatever, but all of a sudden you learned a little something you didn't know a month ago, Had that happened, you'd have never been aware. Where were we prior to Trump's election? None of us were aware.
No.
Did you ever hear the term deep state prior
No,
to?
no, never,
No.
never.
Did you ever
Right.
hear the weaponization of the departments? No.
Absolutely not. No.
So look what the awareness has happened
Sure.
with the.
And it continues. It's going to become more aware before this.
Well, and it's important because they're going clear back to Thomas Jefferson. There's been no democracy, as such, like we are a free country, ever survived, unless the people were smart enough to figure it out what it took to be a democracy. So you have to have an educated populace
Yeah.
in order to in order to maintain the freedoms that we have.
Yeah.
And and I think we've said that as far as like in our case, in our case with slavery, if you really analyze it, of all people, outside of the propaganda that's gone for years, of all people who should reject the Democrat is the black people of our nation, because they paid the biggest price.
Well, sure they do.
Why would they want to continue? And it's a horrible thing when you consider the fact that that's all they're about is dividing. They continue that divide. You see that, Ray?
Well,
don't
sure you do.
Yeah.
Sure I do.
So then, if that's the case, if they're dividing, then why are you supporting them? And that's what's coming up with this walkaways.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And man, those people are saying, "Hey,
Well, it looks
Yeah.
like we were talking about 37% blacks now supporting. That's amazing.
That is
number,
amazing.
Man.
Yeah.
It is, like you said, last year was what, 18? So it's doubled.
Yeah, last year at this time was 18.
Yeah, so it's doubled.
Right.
It's doubled.
And it's growing at an exponential rate, not a straight line. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and it's because it makes common sense. That wait a minute, I have been hoodwinked. Well,
I had this guy come up to me. I got to tell you this story. The second time it's happened in the gym, guy looked like he could walk through walls, right? Gary, this guy was huge, shoulders out to here, black guy, right? And he comes up to me today. I'm coming out, and he goes, man, he says, I got to tell you, he says, how many Trump shirts do you have? I said, I have 21 now. And he says, you wear a different one every day, don't you? And I said, yeah. And he says, I'm a Republican. He says, but I don't have the guts to wear this. I'm thinking, this guy looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he can't wear a Trump shirt. But, the comments, here's a black man who's a Republican, and he's really afraid to express how he feels, because of and he explained, his family, his friends, and I've got a ton of friends that are liberal, and a couple of them are starting to come around, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
The unification that happens, like I was watching these testimonies of these walkaway guys, people, girls and so forth. But think about it, like this one guy, it really made sense. He says, when I got out of that and decided to walk away, he says it was like the chains were lifted off my shoulders. He says I didn't have to be mean anymore. I didn't have to be angry. I didn't have to be hateful. I didn't have to do anything. And he says, the white people that I know, they welcome me. He said, and here's the thing, we talked about it, and you're seeing that. That was a purpose of separation whenever they came up with that African American, Hispanic American with that hyphen.
Oh, yeah.
That's racist.
Well, of course it is.
And
of course it
this
is.
Guy, this kid was supposed to be, I looked like a gangbanger or something, but he said, he says, we're all Americans. And that's the feeling they get when they walk away.
See, things are starting to change.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, like it happens every week when Gary's here, we run out of time. We're down to, and Gary, you're going to come back next week. Let's talk about your stuff that you're sending me. I'm going to start looking some of that stuff over.
Okay.
Let's do a show on that. I'd like to. And we will inform you hopefully this week. I'm pretty sure this week. We're shooting for the last Friday in this month for the show at the Elbow Room. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a celebration for women. Like we said, I'm going to read from 18 Rules of Happiness, which is a phenomenal book, and we're going to give that away. We're also going to read from the new bestseller, Feminine, which is, by the way, there's a class on that, and we'll talk about that. we're going to give away some really good stuff. We're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be a great, great celebration for women, and it'll be fun. So, as I say every week at the close of my show, go up to a law enforcement officer, shake his hand, and tell him how much we appreciate them. You know, and I was telling you, I was going to tell you something. I'm walking out of the club yesterday, GB3, and this guy comes up to me. I didn't know he was a policeman because he's dressed to go to the gym. And he said, "I just want to shake your hand." And I said, "You do?" And for my Trump shirt? And he said, "No." He said, "For what you say at the end of your show every week."
Oh, man, that is awesome.
He said, "This thing is spreading. People are coming up to us. They're shaking our hands. They're telling us how much they appreciate them." And that's what I wanted to get started. I want this to be, I want it to be citywide, countywide.
Right.
You know, I want us to appreciate the people that are out there in uniform, men, women. It doesn't matter. They're police officers, they're law enforcement officers, and they're out there to protect us. So let's appreciate them by shaking their hands and telling them how much we appreciate them.
Well, Ray, if you got Trump to do it, you can get anybody.
Absolutely.
To do it. But I seen Trump do it the other day.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I love it. Gary's story about actually stopping the motorcade and,
he
shaking
gets
his
out
hand.
and goes shake.
I love that kind of stuff. So until we meet joyously again next Friday at 3 o'clock, heaven's blessings.
Today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
CentralValleyTalk.com